So Marine Corps veteran Daniel Penny's attorneys worked with him to release a video providing a little bit of his own perspective and context on the situation while his court case is still underway. Let's see what he had to say.
East Village in Manhattan, so I take the subway multiple times a day. In this instance, I was coming from school. I got out of class around 2:15, and I took the I was at J Street Metro Tech, took the Uptown F train. At 2nd Avenue, a man came on, stumbled on. He appeared to be on drugs. The doors closed, and he ripped his jacket off and threw it at the people sitting down to my left. I was listening to music at the time, and he was yelling, so I took my headphones out to hear what he was yelling. And the three main threats that he repeated over and over was, "I'm gonna kill you, I'm prepared to go to jail for life, and I'm willing to die." You know, this was a scary situation, and Mr. Neely came on. He was threatening. I'm 6'2", and he was taller than me, so it was. And there's a common misconception that Marines don't get scared. We're actually taught one of our core values is courage, and courage is not the absence of fear, but how you handle fear. And you know, I was scared for myself, but I looked around, I saw women and children. He was yelling in their faces, saying these threats. I couldn't just sit still. Some people say that I was holding on to Mr. Neely for 15 minutes. This is not true. I mean, between stops is only a couple minutes. So the whole interaction lasted less than 5 minutes. Some people say I was trying to choke him to death, which is also not true. I was trying to restrain him. You can see in the video, there's a clear rise and fall of his chest, indicating that he's breathing. I'm trying to restrain him from him being able to carry out the threats. And then some people say that this was about race, which is absolutely ridiculous. I didn't see a black man threatening passengers. I saw a man threatening passengers, a lot of whom were people of color. The man who helped restrain Mr. Neely was a person of color. And then a few days after the incident, I read in the papers that a woman of color came out and called me a hero. I don't believe that I'm a hero, but she was one of those people that I was trying to protect. We were all scared. Mr. Neely was yelling in these passengers' faces, and they looked terrified. The reason why there was no video at the start of the altercation was because people were too afraid getting away from him, and the videos didn't start until they saw that situation was under control. I knew I had to act, and I acted in a way that would protect the other passengers, protect myself, and protect Mr. Neely. I used this hold to restrain him, and I did this by leaving my hand on top of his head to control his body. You can see in the video there's a clear rise and fall of his chest, indicating that he was still breathing. And I'm calibrating my grip based on the force that he's exerting. And I was trying to keep him on the ground until the police came. I was praying that the police would come and take this situation over. I didn't want to be put in that situation, but I couldn't just sit still and let him carry out these threats.
So a lot of you already probably know a judge recently granted a motion from Manhattan prosecutors to dismiss the more serious charge of second-degree manslaughter against Daniel Penny this past Friday in his trial over the chokehold death of Jordan Neely on a New York City subway train last year. Daniel, who is 26 years old and got out of the Marine Corps, is still facing a single charge of criminally negligent homicide in Jordan Neely's death, which carries a maximum penalty of 4 years in prison, which is a lot less than the maximum sentence of 15 years that was tied to the more serious charge. But the judge could also choose to sentence Penny to no prison time if he's convicted still. The defense attorney, Thomas Kenneth, said that they're obviously very pleased with the court's decision to withdraw the top count of this indictment. However, we have always maintained that Daniel acted reasonably in restraining Jordan Neely, and justice will not be served until he is acquitted of criminally negligent homicide as well. We are hopeful that will happen when the jury returns on Monday, tomorrow. Now, I know there's been a lot of different stuff coming out about Jordan Neely. Apparently, the guy was a 30-year-old street artist who struggled with homelessness, mental illness, and drugs, and he'd entered the New York City subway car on May 1st of 2023 and was acting erratically and yelling and screaming at people. He threw down his jacket, was yelling at passengers, that he was hungry and thirsty, didn't care whether he died, was just acting very erratically, and Daniel Penny acted on impulse to try to protect the people around him. And as you heard in his personal statement in that video, he didn't view Jordan as a African-American man. He just viewed him as a man that was threatening the other passengers. And he said that there was actually somebody of color that helped him restrain Jordan at the time. And he was also thanked by a lot of other people that were of color on the train with him that day as well. He even told police, he's like, look, I wasn't trying to injure him. I was just trying to keep him from hurting anybody else. That he was threatening everyone. Meanwhile, Eli Crane of Arizona is planning to introduce a resolution to give Daniel Penny the Congressional Gold Medal. Eli Crane stated, Daniel Penny's actions exemplify what it means to stand against the grain to do right in a world that rewards moral cowardice. Eli Crane is a retired Navy SEAL, by the way, who's currently a representative from Arizona. Crane went on to say, our system of justice is fiercely corrupt, allowing degenerates to steamroll our laws and our sense of security while punishing the righteous. Mr. Penny bravely stood up in the gap to defy this corrupt system and protect his fellow Americans. I'm immensely proud to introduce this resolution to award him with the Congressional Gold Medal to recognize his heroism. Now, Jordan Neely at the time had 42 prior arrests and an active warrant. Now, the defense came out and pointed out that Jordan Neely suffered from schizophrenia and was on K2, which is a synthetic cannabinoid, at the time that the incident occurred on the subway train. Penny's defense said in a statement on Friday that they're cautiously optimistic that the remaining count will be dismissed by the jury on Monday, but at this point, it's still up in the air. Now, I think the most important part of this whole case is the fact that bystander intervention is oftentimes the one thing that's going to save lives, because the police are not going to be able to respond quickly enough to something that's going on to prevent death if it's happening right there in the situation. Because like if someone's life is on the line and potentially under threat, there's going to be a gap in time between when the police can actually respond to that situation, because they got a lot of other stuff going on and they have to get the call. They have to respond to the call. They have to call their agents and send them to that location. It's going to take them time to get there. And if there are bystanders that can prevent, lives from being taken, then they have to do that. They have an obligation to help protect their other fellow citizens from harm. And we should encourage that type of behavior. I know you've probably seen videos of, former Marines that got out of the military, stopping people from robbing gas stations. You've probably seen all kinds of other videos of Marines and other former service members intervening to save lives and protect people. You should encourage people to want to act, because otherwise you end up with situations where you've got folks that they just let something unfold and then somebody ends up losing their lives, or multiple people end up losing their lives as a result because nobody wanted to act because they were afraid of the consequences. It's tragic that he lost his life in the situation, and that's not something to be, taken lightly. But at the same time, people should be encouraged to act when they can protect other people's lives in society, because we have an obligation as citizens of America to help each other and to protect one another. So I would hope that this whole circumstance and this whole court case can be used as a example of, hey, if something bad's happening and you can do something to stop it, you should, because at the end of the day, the government or law enforcement, they can only do so much because they're so undermanned and overtaxed, and they have so much stuff going on that they can't be everywhere all at the same time. So sometimes it's going to be up to you as the individual to take matters into your own hands. And that doesn't mean that you should go around willy-nilly acting like an idiot and being a jerk and not taking things into consideration, especially when it comes to the lives of other people. But, your independent thinking, responsible citizens should be enabled and also supported in the decision to intervene in a situation where they can help people. We'll have to see what happens when the jury meets back up on Monday for deliberations to see what the actual result of this case is going to be. Like I said, when the jury returns on Monday, they're going to have an opportunity to continue deliberations on this. And we'll have to see how these things play out.